Now, Eamonn, you are the king of television, and you have worked on so many exciting projects. But when did you get your first big break?
Oh gosh, there's so many breaks at so many times. I suppose the first break is actually to get on television, because if you don't get on, you've nowhere to go. And I would go back to October 1980, and my journalism tutor got in touch with me, and I was working on a building magazine at the time in Belfast, and she said to me, there's a job available on the farming programme at Ulster Television, and would you like to audition for it? And I said, but Mrs. Fitzpatrick, I don't know anything about farming. And she said, rule one of journalism, Eamonn, find out. And so I've always found it to be that whether the subject is farming, whether it is soap operas, whether it's various sports that I've covered throughout the years, or politics, news events, whatever, you've got to find out about your subject. So, you know, I did what I could on farming. I did the audition. I got the job, and that was a tremendous break. That gets you in television. But the interesting thing was I nearly threw it all away, because the producer called me in and he offered me the job, which was brilliant. And I said to him, how much would it pay? And he said to me, he called out to his secretary, who was outside the door, and he said, Ruth, what's the NUJ rate? Which NUJ means National Union of Journalists. And she said, £44.44, Mr. Fitzpatrick. And he said, right, £44.44. And I went, See, so I was earning about £3,000 at that stage, and not being particularly good at maths, but I could add this up. So I'm going roughly 40 and 40s, 80 is 160 a month, multiplied by 10, 1,600, that's about 2,000. That's just under 2,000 quid a year. That's really short of what I'm getting at the moment. And I said, that's not enough. It's just not enough, Mr. Fitzpatrick, not enough. And he said, right, you're interested in sport, aren't you? And I said, I am indeed. And he phoned the sports editor and he said, I've got you another 2 days on sport. So you'll do 5 days with me and you'll do 2 days in the sports department at weekends. And I said, how much would that be for? And he said, same money. Now, he meant the same rate. I thought he meant I would do 7 days a week for the same money, because I would just be delighted to be on TV the way most people are. And I said, look, I'm really sorry. I've just bought a car at £550 and I'm engaged to be married, and I want to save up, and I just couldn't do it on that. And he said, I want you to think long and hard, young lad. He said, you're 19. He said, and you're turning this job down. Over the years, I have never had anybody in this office that's turned down a position offered to them in Ulster Television on screen. And I said, well, I'm sorry, I just can't afford to do it on that money. I don't think the money's good enough. And he was disgusted with me, Lewis. He was absolutely disgusted with me. He said, right, just get out of my sight, get out. And I got up and dropped my head and went out, and his secretary escorted me out of the building. And it was during the Troubles in Northern Ireland, and there was a lot of security in the foyer of Ulster Television, and the doors, were opened. The sealed doors were opened, and the secretary said to me, "What went wrong? What? They loved you. What went wrong?" And I said, "Well, I may be young, but I'm not stupid. £44.44 a week for that job." And she said, "A week? That's a day." She said, "That's a day." And the doors, Lewis, it was like slow motion, closed behind me. Thump. They just closed behind me, and I was outside, and I'm going, oh my God, what have I done? What have I done? So I'm trying to calculate in my head. So this is a day, so this is 5 days, this is £200, 2, 4, 6, 8, that's 9,000 plus the weekend stuff. That's about £10,000 a year. So I'm going from £3,000 a year to £10,000 a year and a job on TV, and I've just said no to it. So I ran down to the post office. There were no mobile phones in those days. Got some money, put it in the call box, phoned back a secretary. I said, "Ruth, please can I speak to him?" And she said, "I'm sorry, he's having his lunch." And I said, please, I've really messed this up, please can I speak to him?" And I could hear there meeting his lunch, he transferred me through to his office, and he said, yes, and I said, Mr. Fitzpatrick, I really got this wrong, And I don't know why I just didn't say to him, I misunderstood what you were talking about in terms of the pay rate. But I went into this convoluted story about I thought construction was the place to be, but I now realize it's farming, and I will, really dedicate myself to it, and I've just had to think, and you are absolutely right, and it's farming where I should be, and agriculture's for me, and then there was this silence. And he said to me, you start on Monday. And that was it. But you talk about luck or big breaks. That had to be my break. I got in to do that. I did the farming program. I did the sports program as well for 2 years. I combined those jobs. And then Gloria Hunniford, and this is where another break comes into it. Gloria Hunniford was presenting the Tea Time program, and she left to go to Radio 2 in 1982. And I was offered a job in BBC News and Current Affairs in Northern Ireland. And the boss men called me in and they said, what would it take to stay? And I said, I just shrugged my shoulders, and I'm now 21. And I said, Gloria's job. I said, short of that, really nothing. I want to go. And they said, okay. And they gave me Gloria's job. And so that was another huge break for me. And then another break came when, in 1985, 86, the BBC was developing daytime television. They had Pell Mill at 1, and ITV had Emmerdale Farm on at the same time. Those were the only real daytime programs. There was the 1 o'clock news, I think, on ITV as well. But there was nothing else except schools programs and kids programs from 4 o'clock. And they developed a daytime schedule. And somebody had seen me in Northern Ireland, in the regions, and invited me to audition for a job for a BBC daytime program called Open Air. And it was a 90-minute long version of Points of View, basically. It was a very, very good program. And I was selected for that, and it meant having to leave Northern Ireland and go and live in Manchester, which I did very, very happily for 5, nearly 6 years. So that was another big break, and getting a break to join GMTV afterwards was superb as well. So there are a number of times and opportunities and moments. Everything changes, and you should change as well.
And you were just talking about Open Air. That show was live every day, so how did you find that experience of going live to the nation? Well,
I remember the farming program. Everything I ever did on TV was live, with the exception, actually, of the farming program. The farming program was recorded on a Saturday for transmission on a Sunday. And I remember my first appearance on the farming program, my heart was beating so loudly that I couldn't hear myself speak during the introduction to the program. My ears were pounding because my heart was leaping through my chest. And then I would do live programming, obviously, for the next 5 years in Northern Ireland, which was very, very challenging programming in the middle of the Troubles. And there was a lot to deal with. And you become used to it, and Open Air being a live network program, of course it's a different level. You step up a grade. And you become used to adrenaline. And really, for 33 years of my life, all I have ever done is live programming, and that's what I tend to be hired for. So whether it was Open Air, whether it's GMTV, whether it's Sky News in the morning, whether it's This Morning, even the lottery I did on a Saturday night was the only lottery program there's ever been live in terms of a game show format. So that's my expertise now. So it was just something that was my thing that I could do easily. A lot of people can't do live, but live was my thing.
And you do it really well. But another thing that stands out for me was, for over 10 years you presented on GMTV, but your interview with David Blaine is something that I just find mesmerising. How can you talk about that experience?
Well, the thing about David Blaine is, up until that day, I don't think anyone had really ever heard of him. So I wasn't particularly infatuated or interested in magic. It was a bit, yes, it's a trick, so what? That doesn't really interest me one way or the other. But he was a street magician. He was waiting outside to do an interview, and the word came into us that he was fed up waiting and he was going to go home. And by home, I mean America. He was going back to New York. And that was going to leave us light, some 7 or 8 minutes light in the program. And I ran outside and said to the producer, look, get him in now. Instead of waiting until 20 past 8, get him in at 10 past 8. And you might as well take him if he's here. Never mind the order he comes in. Just get him on the show. So in he comes, and he sits down, and I do the introduction to him. And then I realize pretty quickly this guy's not talking. And that becomes the longest 7 minutes of your life, because you're going absolutely nowhere. You're getting absolutely no help from at all. Now, he was either jet-lagged, he was under the influence of something. I was just about to say to him, sling your hook, because really you're here to talk and you're not doing it, when a terrible thought went through my mind, which is, I wonder, is this guy diabetic? I had been with someone earlier that week who had gone into a bit of a diabetic coma, and I'd seen the effects of it, and I thought, before I tell him to get out of the studio, I better consider really long and hard if this man is ill or not. And it turned out he wasn't ill, but Blaine being Blaine, I think he can put his body into a bit of a coma, whether it's underwater, under ice, hanging from a crane, suspended into the River Thames. But he could do all those things. A very strange, weird man. So if no one much had heard about him before that interview, certainly everyone had heard about him after that interview. So it could have been a publicity trick, but I don't know to this day.
But I mean, you handled it so well. You did it in a style that you made it funny for people watching. You put charisma and wit in the interview, which kind of made it flow quite well.
Well, that's nice of you to say so, because I think I handled it appallingly. And, if I could go back and do it all again, I mean, I suppose you are your own biggest critic. All I look is me fumbling and searching for words, because it's easy for an interviewer if the guest speaks. It becomes the hardest interview you do, Lewis, if the guest doesn't speak. And therefore, I don't really understand interviewers who don't go and meet their guests beforehand. That particular day with Blaine, I couldn't, because he arrived in late, and we're live on air, obviously, for 2 hours doing other things. But always when I get the chance, I pop out during commercial breaks and during pieces of videotape to speak to people, just to say, hello, how are you? Just to find out if they are talkative, if they are distant, if they've got any worries, if there's anything they'd like to talk about, not like to talk about. It's, forearmed is forewarned. But I wish I could revisit that, because I just thought I was quite bumbling and searching. It was difficult, it was challenging, it could have been worse, but I think it probably could have been better.
I think you did brilliant. I mean, I watched that, and I think only you could have handled it the way you did. But there's something I need to tell you.
All I know is I presented with Fiona Phillips that morning, who would never normally shut up and always elbow her way into everything you were talking about. But it was as if she wasn't there. She was completely silent. I remember turning to her afterwards and saying, thanks a million, where were you when I needed you? He was strange man.
Now, there's something that I must tell you during this interview, and I hope you don't hang up, but I am a Tottenham Hotspur supporter.
Yeah, well, no difficulties for that, I think you guys are doing very well under AVB, and, our last meeting at White Hart Lane, you can't really have any complaints, because Tottenham had so much possession that day, and there you go. But so I can't really complain.
But I mean, you are known for being a big Man United supporter, and when I told people that I was interviewing you, everyone was like, big respect for Eamonn, he's a Man United supporter. But have you ever interviewed any of the players, or Sir Alex Ferguson?
Oh yes, yeah, absolutely. Sometimes with footballers, a lot of them don't really develop personalities until they finish the game, because they don't really have to, and they're often looked after like children, whilst they are professionals. Everything is done for them. Their clothes are selected for them. Their passports are held for them. They're checked in by other people at the airport. Everything's done for them. The club have people, if they have any problems at home, they have people at the club who will sort it out. By that I mean if the washing machine breaks down, or if they need to order a pizza and they can't speak the language or whatever, there are people to do everything for them. So a lot of them actually don't have to be particularly nice or particularly friendly. Sir Alex I've known for many, many years, and I think he's an amazing man. I think he's an absolutely amazing man. And, Manchester United for me is my big love affair. And, most people, especially men, they revert to being children when they talk about football. They revert to an idyllic time in their life when they were 9, 10 or 11 years of age and they wanted to play centre forward for their team. And football for me is my great escape, and it's lovely for bonding with my children, for instance. And our children age and range from 23 down to 11. And each one of them has an interest in the game, and it's lovely to be able to share that with them. It's a great feeling to be a dad and go to a match with your child.
There's something that you can talk about together. Now, another thing that I love is your relationship with your beautiful wife, Ruth. On a TV. But did you guys know each other before television? Did you meet prior to being, presenting together?
Well, Ruth's been doing telly for as long as I've been doing it, almost, and in the West Country for her. And I think Cornwall was part of her region. I'm pretty sure it was, Devon and Cornwall. She was Plymouth-based. I don't know if that comes in for you. But she was basically, her TV prominence came because of her relationship with a rabbit called Gus Honeybun, which, first of all, she used to operate and then she used to talk to. And she would read out people's birthday requests with Gus Honeybun, and that's what Ruth would do. And then Ruth found herself that when her television station lost the franchise in the West Country, that she had to go freelance, and she became a reporter for BBC One's Country File. And I spotted her on that, and we didn't know each other. I spotted her on that, and then we were introduced by a mutual friend at a party, and 4 years later we got together, because she would only occasionally be up and around London, and that's when we would meet. But yes, I think, for me it was love at first sight, but I never thought we would get together, and we did 4 years later, so that was amazing, which only goes to prove you should be careful what you wish for.
But you work so well together, and you bounce off each other really well.
Well, I suppose as a real couple, as opposed to a TV couple, there is a natural telepathy. Sometimes that can be a dangerous thing because there are formalities in TV, and some people still wouldn't know that we are together as a couple or that we're married. And they will say, I think he spoke to her far too familiarly, and then they wouldn't realise that actually we're together. There is most pairings in broadcasting, it's a false arrangement. Even the best of people obviously are stick to a script and whatever. So it is a different experience being with someone who you're married to, and you can finish each other's sentences and you know exactly what each other think, and it's an interesting relationship. Some viewers like it. Thankfully, most viewers seem to like it. Some people don't like that familiarity. But for me, it's a tremendous privilege to be not only presenting a show like this morning, but to be presenting it with the woman you love. And I just think, well, what are the chances of that? That's absolutely incredible. You are a fantastic couple, and I loved you on Celebrity Juice. That's something I got to say. Yeah. That's a good one. That's one worth looking up on YouTube, isn't it? But she's got, the thing about Ruth is, Ruth always says, it's a good job you make me laugh. And, people who would mistake, some people, obviously Ruth and I have got a very good relationship in terms of the banter that we have between us, and based on a very rock solid relationship where we're very much in love. But so that's the way we speak to each other. We laugh and joke and joust with each other. But not everybody does that. Not everybody does that. But a lot of people get in touch with us and they say, "You're just like me and my husband. That's exactly the way we get on," and whatever. So it's been a very interesting experience working with her. Though we tend not to bring work home. I mean, I would talk more work than Ruth would, and Ruth does it. Loves the job that she does. This morning has been a dream job for her, but I think Ruth's very happy to leave it all behind when she comes home and just be a mum.
Right. I mean, like I said, she seems so lovely as well. Together you work so well. You really do. Now, tonight, good luck, National Television Awards. That's
right. Yeah, Ruth's upstairs now, sort of putting on her makeup. That'll take a few hours. And, and then we head going to these awards. It really is like work. Particularly, I think, from a woman's point of view, it's very, very difficult in terms of what they wear and how they're examined and photographed and all that sort of thing. And it's an amazing gathering because television itself is like one big community or village, and you bump into lots of people who you interview throughout the year, and it's quite social tonight. And they're winners and they're losers, but I think the main thing is being shortlisted and being there. And if you get a prize, it's a welcome, but unexpected. You certainly don't take it for granted, Lewis.
And I mean, this morning really does deserve to win an award. It's such a great programme. It has so many kind of elements in it for everyone.
Well, it does. All human life is there. But there are a lot of good programs out there. We're up against The Chase, which is very strong, and Jeremy Kyle, who is an absolute phenomenon, to be able to do what he does on both sides of the Atlantic. He does his shows here, and he does the same show in America, and not many people could present in the way that Jeremy does, love him or loathe him. And so I know we're up against very, very tough competition.
Oh, good luck tonight, and I'm sure you're going to do well, and I'd love to thank you for your time and give me the chance to interview you.
Lewis, not at all. My pleasure, and see you in the morning.
See you soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.